Okay, so today we're going to talk about saving different files in different formats for web design and how you want to finish your images up when you're in Photoshop. All right, so the first thing that we need to talk about, depending on your version of Photoshop, when you go to File, you are going to see Save for Web right up about here in a lot of the older versions. And Photoshop, the latest update that I have, 19. Version 19. Instead, doesn't have that, but you can find it if you really like it. It's still got the same keystroke and Save for Web Legacy. You can bring up that wizard and do things the way you used to do them. So you can find Save for Web, the old version right there. Once you have, you can set up preferences, so you can get quick exports and you can produce images quickly, or you can click Export As. Like I said, you'll see some differences here. One of the first things I really like over here is that you can save multiple copies of your image in different sizes, and it'll save them all at the same time. It'll, you hit Export All. Yeah, and all right, so we created a folder named Roses. You look in here and you see that it's got all 5 versions, and that was really, really quick and easy to do. If we change it to details, you'll see that these have different sizes. 5 meg, 3 meg, 2 meg, about a half meg here, and a JPEG file. So that way you can figure out which picture you want and best suits you. The reality is you want to upload onto your website the smallest image and the lowest quality that you can get away with, and your website still look really good. There are huge banners up at the very top of your website where you might want a high quality picture and things of that nature. But if you have a lot of pictures on your website, you really want to get in the habit of making these images as small as possible so the website loads up quickly. A slowly loading website is a website nobody visits. So you really using this part of Photoshop in order to make your images take up less size is extremely valuable in the number of people that are going to visit your website and use your content or pay you money. So we'll go back to export and export as. And the next thing we're going to talk about are the different versions that you have here. And we're just going to, and I'd like you to do this as well with your own image, but we're going to, really what you want to do is experiment with this number right here. Right now we have 5 megabytes for one image. 4,000 by 3,000 pixels. That's huge. It's much larger than any monitor that anybody's going to view. But when you take images, you want to take them at the largest setting possible. You don't want to zoom in with your phone. You want to zoom out, take the largest, most high quality images that your phone or whatever you were taking, whatever camera you're using to take the pictures. You want to take the largest images possible and the most high quality images possible. Because we can always go back in here in Photoshop and change these to a much smaller size to suit your purposes. So big question here, PNG, JPEG, GIF. So GIF is if you have animation, you're going to want to use GIF. If you have transparency, if you removed, like we talked about, using quick select tools and layers and whatnot, and you've removed backgrounds to make it transparent, so that part of the image will match whatever background or whatever main color you have on your website. If you use transparent, you want to use PNG. Also, your very, very high quality pictures, you're going to want to use PNG. You're going to get better quality out of that, even though JPEG will work. For JPEG, you're going to use JPEG if it's going to be a smaller picture or a local, or you can get away with lower quality. And you'll notice just by changing that it changes things for us. All right, so we can get away with, for instance, an image with 33% quality, and it's 3/4 of a megabyte, and that's still at this size. So the next thing you can do here is you can change the scale here too. We'll go 25%. That's 1,000. All right, that's pretty good for a banner. And don't worry about this. We're at 50%. I mean, it gets really small, it doesn't mean it's going to actually be small. It's going to be the size that the image size of yours. Now, we just brought it to 33% quality, and we brought it to 25% size or scale. And you'll notice that it's less than 100 kilobytes, so less than a tenth of a megabyte, that image. We started out with a 5 megabyte image, so that was huge scaling down and compression of that image in order for, and that just means it'll load up faster on your website and that your web page will load up faster. So those are the kind of things that you want to do. Always remove the metadata. Every image is going to have data behind it, saved about location and image size and a ton of things, whatever it is that your camera or your phone saves when it takes that picture. And if you click none, it's going to remove all that metadata and make that image load up even faster. So those are some other tips there. That's the difference between PNG. Again, if you have transparency or it's a high quality image, JPEG, you're gonna and you'll notice I cut it and I reduced it in half just by changing it from PNG to JPEG. The other thing that you need to understand is that you can do multiple photos over here and save them all at the same time. That's kind of handy as well. All right, and that's a good way to get all the different sizes of photos that you're going to need for making a responsive web. Okay, I've created a button. It's got a little bit of a and you can see down here it's got a little bit of a drop shadow on the button part, and it's got a submit with text size and font size, and it's got bevel and emboss and things of that nature. So one of the things that I wanted you guys to be aware of for web design that's really cool is that you can go in here and right click on, for instance, I can right click on the button, not the text, and I can go copy CSS right here, because that'll take all of the details from that rounded button and convert it to a rounded rectangle class with all the specifics in CSS, so that you can copy that. You can create a button in Photoshop and actually create it as a button and use the CSS in order to style a button the same exact way. So we've got the rounded rectangle, and if we want the text, do the same thing. Now, it won't copy absolutely everything, but it will copy a lot. For instance, I want you to notice that the emboss is not copied here, but up here the drop shadow is. So it does record drop shadow information. There are certain things that you can look up. It's always changing. So at the time of this video, it did drop shadow, but it didn't do emboss. But when you go later on in the next few years, maybe it'll be CSS will evolve in order to include other kind of effects like drop shadow. But right now, drop shadow is it. But it again, I can set up my box here however I want. So if I move this thing, there we go. I move it down here for some reason, and this. We'll compare it. All right, so you notice that the position changed. All right, you guys see that? Z-index, it kept track of Z-index based on layers, which is pretty cool, and font family and everything else. All right, and that is how you can design things in Photoshop in order to set up your CSS so you can style different items, buttons, rectangles, different ways to organize your website, and different things like that you can create in here and copy that CSS so that you can style your website a little bit easier, make it very comfortable. So again, thanks for your time, and I hope you learned a lot.